Hello everyone, welcome to Midnight Horror. Today we will explore an intriguing story titled The Beach's Silent Wail by the author from me. Sit back, relax, and maybe grab a cup of tea or coffee as we dive into the captivating world of this tale. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons so you don't miss out on our future exciting videos. Now, let's begin our journey. As the sun began its slow descent towards the horizon, the sky above the beach was painted with vibrant hues of orange, pink, and purple. Amelia and her friends, Jason, Sarah, and Mark, were excited for a peaceful evening by the sea. They had been planning this trip for weeks, eager to escape the hustle and bustle of their daily lives and enjoy the serenity of the beach at sunset. The group arrived at their chosen spot, a secluded stretch of sand that was perfect for their bonfire. They unloaded their coolers, blankets, and firewood, chatting animatedly as they worked together to set up their little campsite. The sound of seagulls cawing overhead and the gentle lapping of waves against the shore created a soothing backdrop for their activities. "Look at that sunset," Sarah said, her voice filled with awe. "It's absolutely stunning." Amelia smiled, feeling a sense of contentment wash over her. She had always loved the beach, and moments like these made her appreciate its beauty even more. "It's perfect," she agreed, glancing at her friends. "I'm glad we decided to do this." Jason and Mark had already started building the bonfire, their laughter ringing out as they joked about their lack of survival skills. "I swear, if we ever get stranded on a deserted island, we'll be doomed," Jason said, grinning as he struggled to arrange the logs. "Speak for yourself," Mark retorted, striking a match and lighting the kindling. "I've watched enough survival shows to know what I'm doing." Soon the fire was crackling merrily, casting a warm glow that contrasted beautifully with the cooling evening air. They settled around it, passing around snacks and drinks, and sharing stories from their lives. The atmosphere was light and cheerful, the perfect antidote to the stress and worries they had left behind. As the sky darkened and the first stars began to twinkle overhead, Amelia felt a deep sense of peace. The rhythmic sound of the waves, the soft murmur of her friends' voices, and the comforting warmth of the fire created a cocoon of tranquility that she wished could last forever. "This is exactly what we needed," Mark said, stretching out on his blanket. "No work, no responsibilities, just us and the beach." "Cheers to that," Jason said, raising his drink in a toast. The others joined in, clinking their cans and bottles together. For a while they simply sat in companionable silence, watching the flames dance and listening to the sounds of the ocean. It was a moment of pure, unadulterated bliss, unmarred by the troubles of the world. But as the night wore on, and the shadows grew longer, Amelia couldn't shake a strange feeling that began to creep into her mind. It was subtle at first, just a fleeting sense of unease that she dismissed as a product of her overactive imagination. After all, they were on a beach at sunset, surrounded by friends. What could possibly go wrong? Little did she know, the tranquility of the evening would soon give way to something far more sinister, and the beach they had thought of as a haven would become the setting for a nightmarish encounter none of them would ever forget. As the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a fiery glow across the ocean, the beach became eerily quiet. The waves, once rhythmic and soothing, now crashed against the shore with an unsettling intensity, as if whispering secrets only the sea could hold. Amelia and her friends had decided to spend their evening here, lured by the promise of a tranquil sunset and the warmth of the fading day. The group had gathered around a small bonfire, its flames flickering and casting long, dancing shadows on the sand. Laughter and light-hearted conversations filled the air, but Amelia couldn't shake off the feeling that they were not alone. She glanced towards the water, its surface now a dark, churning mass, and felt a shiver run down her spine. "Do you guys feel that?" Amelia asked, trying to keep her voice steady. Her friends, caught up in their stories and jokes, barely noticed her unease. "Feel what?" Jason replied, his tone dismissive. "Come on, Amelia, it's just a beach. Relax." But Amelia couldn't relax. She had always been sensitive to her surroundings, and tonight, something felt off. The air seemed to thicken, and the usual comforting scent of salt and seaweed was overpowered by a faint metallic odor. She stood up, brushing the sand off her jeans, and walked towards the water's edge. As she neared the shoreline, she spotted something glistening in the wet sand. Kneeling down, she picked it up, a small ornate pendant covered in intricate engravings. The metal felt icy cold in her hand despite the warmth of the day. She turned to call out to her friends, but her voice caught in her throat as she saw a figure standing just a few feet away, partially obscured by the growing darkness. "Hey, who's there?" Amelia called, but the figure remained still. Her friend's laughter faded into the background as she took a cautious step forward. The figure moved slightly, and in the dim light she could make out the pale, ghostly features of a woman, her eyes wide and hollow. Amelia's heart pounded as she backed away, nearly tripping over the uneven sand. She turned and ran back to the bonfire, the pendant clutched tightly in her hand. Her friends looked up, their expressions shifting from amusement to concern. "What's wrong?" Sarah asked, standing up and placing a hand on Amelia's shoulder. "There was someone by the water," Amelia gasped, struggling to catch her breath. "A woman. She looked wrong." Jason scoffed. "Probably just some beachgoer trying to scare us. You know how people are." But Amelia knew what she had seen. She opened her hand to show the pendant, its strange symbols now glowing faintly in the firelight. "I found this by the shore. It doesn't feel right." As her friends gathered around to inspect the pendant, a chilling breeze swept across the beach, extinguishing their fire in an instant. The group was plunged into darkness, the only sound the relentless crashing of the waves. Suddenly, a low, mournful wail echoed across the beach, sending shivers down their spines. The figure Amelia had seen emerged from the shadows, her eyes fixed on the pendant. She raised a bony hand pointing directly at Amelia, who felt a cold, unseen force tightening around her chest. The woman's eyes, hollow and black, seemed to bore into Amelia's soul, and her mouth opened in a silent scream. Amelia tried to scream, but no sound came out. Her friends' frantic voices seemed distant, muffled by the overwhelming presence of the spectral woman. The air grew colder, and a thick fog began to roll in from the sea, enveloping the beach in an impenetrable shroud. Panic set in, and the group scrambled to gather their belongings. "We need to leave now!" Sarah shouted, grabbing Amelia's arm. They ran towards the parking lot, the ghostly woman's wail growing louder and more desperate. As they reached the safety of their cars, Amelia glanced back one last time. The beach was empty, but she knew they had disturbed something ancient and restless. The pendant, now safely tucked away in her pocket, pulsed with an otherworldly energy. They drove away, the horror of the evening etched into their memories, knowing that the beach would never again be a place of comfort and peace. In the days that followed, Amelia couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched. Every time she closed her eyes, she saw the woman's hollow black eyes and heard the mournful wail that had echoed across the beach. She knew she had to find out what the pendant was and why it had such a powerful effect on the spirit. Amelia took the pendant to a local historian, an expert in the area's lore and legends. Dr. Hayes, an elderly man with a kind face and a wealth of knowledge, examined the pendant with a mixture of fascination and concern. "This is no ordinary piece of jewelry," he said, tracing the intricate engravings with a trembling finger. "These symbols are ancient, possibly dating back to the early settlers of this region. There are stories of a woman who was wronged, cast out, and left to die by the shore. Her spirit is said to haunt these waters, seeking justice and peace." Amelia felt a chill run down her spine as Dr. Hayes continued. The pendant was likely hers, a talisman of protection or perhaps a keepsake. By disturbing it, you may have awakened her spirit, and she won't rest until she has what she desires. "But what does she want?" Amelia asked, her voice barely above a whisper. "Restitution, perhaps," Dr. Hayes replied, "or simply to be remembered and acknowledged. Spirits like hers are often bound by strong emotions, grief, anger, a longing for justice." Determined to set things right, Amelia returned to the beach one evening, the pendant clutched tightly in her hand. She walked to the water's edge, the memories of that fateful night flooding back. The sea was calm, the sky clear, but the air was thick with anticipation. Taking a deep breath, Amelia held the pendant aloft and called out, "I know you're here. I know your story. I'm sorry for what happened to you. Please take this and find peace." For a moment, nothing happened. Then a soft breeze stirred the air, and the water before her began to shimmer. The ghostly figure of the woman emerged, her eyes no longer hollow but filled with a deep, sorrowful longing. She reached out, and the pendant floated from Amelia's hand into hers. The woman's lips moved in a silent thank you, and as she clutched the pendant to her chest, her form began to dissolve into the air. The oppressive weight lifted, and a sense of calm settled over the beach. Amelia watched as the spirit faded, leaving behind only a faint whisper of gratitude carried on the wind. Amelia stood there for a long time, the waves lapping gently at her feet. She felt a profound sense of closure, knowing that the spirit had finally found peace. The beach, once a place of horror, was now a place of reflection and remembrance. As she turned to leave, Amelia knew she would never forget the events of that night. The pendant, the spirit, and the history they had uncovered were now a part of her, a reminder of the power of the past and the importance of respect for those who came before.